Good morning. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. And this morning, our special guest is Dr. Lynette Reed, who has a three-part behavioral process for handling crisis prevention or crisis management. So, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well, but I bet the rest of the country can't say that, can they?
Well, it's definitely a rough time for the entire global community. I think this is actually, from what I understand, the first time something like this has happened where it's actually impacted the entire world like this. So it's definitely different and interesting times.
It certainly is. So, Lynette, please explain who you are and why you got into what you did and how you came up with the process that you did in order to help people deal with, well, reality, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I started, it's kind of an odd path, but I started where I was doing a lot of work with people that were having challenges in their life. I'm definitely not a counselor. I do work with a number of counselors, but that's not my skill set. But a lot of the people were feeling, the words I heard a lot were not focused, scattered. They would get angry a lot. They were not having the ability to kind of move forward. A lot of times it was a boss I was working with who was concerned about a client, one of their clients or one of their employees. And so I would start working with them. And then it just kind of kept evolving after that. And I actually formed the 3 steps whenever I was working on my doctorate. It was part of my doctorate work. And it had to do with, believe it or not, it started out in spirituality, but not necessarily from the religious aspect of it, but more in how do we connect to ourselves, to other people, and the world. So the degree is actually in what's called spirituality, sustainability, and interreligious dialogue. So it's kind of world peace, I guess is the best way to put it.
Within yourself, probably, because we ourselves have a lot of internal conflicts that a lot of people never resolve. They just sort of put it away or not deal with it, or they pass it along to their offspring.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot. In fact, I was just writing an article on fear, and it was talking about the fight or flight response that we have, which is a physiological response. But sometimes even when we're not in mortal danger, we still kind of react that way, where we'll get tense or we'll feel, like our heart's pounding, and we'll try to avoid or be passive aggressive or get real aggressive if you're a fight kind of person. So yeah. So how do you manage that? How do you manage all those emotions that are going on? And how do you manage what's happening in your day so that that's not happening? And that works also for organizations. If you've got an organization that wants to change their corporate culture, how do you go about doing that?
Well, they have a lot of that fight and flight in the organizations where I know a lot of low-level managers just pass along right to their secretary and say, you handle this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They sometimes they're even passive aggressive about it, right?
Yeah. After they handle it, they go in, and this is what I did to the next boss. And
Right.
the secretary goes there, what?
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who've been put on the spot, but then they're told, well, that's what you get paid for. And I've looked in all those job descriptions as a secretary myself, and there isn't anything in there saying that at all. You're not being paid to handle the boss's meltdown for their inability to handle a decision.
Yeah. And it's a challenge because, it's at all levels. The model that I use can work for a leader, or it can work for somebody who's kind of at the bottom level, who's having to deal with they're not only their manager, but the boss's boss and coworkers and things like that. So it's really a way to kind of center or focus yourself in a more daily activity kind of way. And the biggest challenge is a lot of people think it's a quick fix. Okay, if you've got a boss who's a problem, well, that may not be a quick fix, but if you go through a process, then you can kind of figure out a way to make your day a little calmer. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
So what you're really doing is re-educating people of how to deal with the feeling that they're overwhelmed and what are we going to do now? There's no bolt hole for me to run to, and the ground is suddenly not going to divide itself and have me be swallowed up in a chasm, so I don't have to address the problems that have just been laid at my desk.
Right. It's not going away. Yeah.
Not going away.
You manage yourself. Yeah. And sometimes that's really the only thing you can do. I think a lot of times people feel like they're out of control. So they try to hide, or they try to be aggressive and fight with people. And really, if you get to your kind of yourself and say, okay, who do I want to be as a person, and kind of identify that, what I normally start people with is a tool. It's actually in our resource on my website that helps them choose intentional mission words that are kind of their focus words. So for instance, if you said, I want to be friendly, or if I want to be helpful or efficient, whatever words you choose for yourself, that's kind of your starting point. And then the goal is to take those words and build your actions onto them, and to not be distracted by judging other people as good or bad or wrong or right, and being able to go back to your words instead of that judgment thing. Because that whenever you start judging your value against others, that's a slippery slope.
And I would think that you would also have to address, when you debate with yourself, of what you should or should not do in order to handle whatever situation. And that also includes personally too, whether you're on the job or not, how to handle something without going ballistic inside.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. How do you, it's really the way I kind of describe it to people is, if you think of, and if I'm with somebody, I actually have them write it out. Think of drawing a straight line. Okay. So visualize that straight line and how nice and calm that feels to have that nice straight line. You're not going crazy and then down, up and down and up and down and up and down. You've just got that nice straight line, and you stay calm with it. And then somebody comes around you who's doing this. They're all up and down. They're moving all over the place. Think about your line compared to that person. If you can stay calm and not let yourself fall off that line, that's a much calmer situation than both people going, up and down and up and down. You can just see it visually. And then you can imagine what it feels like viscerally, emotionally to yourself, if you're able to just kind of stay on that line. I'm friendly. That's where I'm going to be. That's where I'm going to stay. All of my actions, that's where my focus is, not on whether that person's wrong or right, or, deserves that or not. So.
And if you can't do it, take a piece of chalk, go by the water fountain, draw this straight line, or go to your boss's office and draw this line and tell them it's not so much whether you cross it or not, but when you look at it, I want you to flow.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Yeah, just don't get all crazy about what's going on, because especially in a time like right now where we really are in a position where there could be mortal danger or physical harm to people. You got to weed out, okay, where do I have to really be fearful of something and have a response to protect it? And where is it that I'm just being afraid and I really could do something else? You lose your job. Well, yeah, there is a problem of not having food on the table, but it's not going to get any better by getting crazy about it, as opposed to thinking, okay, I've got this situation now. How am I going to deal with it? What do I need to do? What are the steps I have to take? Staying on that line, and okay, I'm going to be, if my word's friendly, then I have to be friendly as I go through this process, because that's what's going to ground me to myself, and it's going to ground me to other people, because they're going to be able to trust me to know, okay, that's who that person is. If you think about people who say, oh yeah, I'm really friendly, but then they look like that all day, it's kind of hard to believe that somebody who is grumpy and kind of frowny all day is a friendly person. And then you get into the whole thing about how do you define the word friendly. So there's lots of components to it. So it does take a little while to learn it, unless it just comes inherently to you. And it takes practice. It's like any skill set you're learning. You're learning a skill that's going to help you stay calm in situations.
Or bring your chess set to work, set it up on the interview desk, have it set up, and invite your boss to play with you.
There you go. There you go.
That would calm you down. I know that from what I understand, I have 3 grandkids. The older ones at 13 are doing okay, but the 6-year-old, my son tells me, is up and he's down. So in that kind of a situation, how do you deal with kids who are well between the ages of what? He's 6, so he's going to be in first grade next year, and that makes him 7. So this, I would say, the 6 to 9 set.
Yeah.
How does the parent work with a child to get them to be more even than this up and down and up and down?
Well, I have 2 daughters that are grown now, and my understanding, and I did actually work a lot with children in my earlier life. And one thing I have found is when they're that age, they're not developed yet, so you can't rationalize them like you would an adult. Right. So you have to be patient. You have to get down on their level, get down right next to them, and take the extra 5 to 10 minutes it's going to take to explain to them, here's the situation. And one of the things that I was always taught was give them a choice. Okay, here's your choices. You can either go to bed because it's bedtime and I can read you a book, or you can go to bed without a book. All right. You pick, either one's yours. And then they get to choose how they want to. And that makes them feel like they have a little more control, but they are going to have moments where they are up and down, because they're young and they're learning, and they haven't quite learned how to grab hold of those emotions yet and deal with them like some adult people would, not that all adults.
I was going to say, parents, if you're in that same room or same house with them and your behavior is fluctuating, then of course your kid is going to fluctuate along with you. But if you manage to keep everything on an even keel, then I'm not promising you that your young child is going to stay on the even keel, but they'll be less prone. Because they're in a calm environment where things are done slowly, but they're dealt with, and they're shown that now it's time to study. Now it's time to read. Now it's time to lay me down and go to sleep. Yeah. And I think it's how you yourself handle the situation around you that sends off vibes to the kid, because I think there's energy in the room that you can feel. Like when you feel a ghost, I think you can feel how a living being is either fluctuating inside or more or less is remaining steady.
Oh yeah. I mean, think about it. If you as a parent stay very calm, stay on your line, what's your word? Am I going to be friendly to this child? Am I going to be helpful? What if my goal is to be this kind of person, I also have to be this kind of person whenever my child is driving me crazy, so you have to say, especially, now that a lot of people are homeschooling and all, you have to say, here's my line, and I'm going to stay on it, and I'm going to show them that we are able to do that I don't have to lose my temper, and I don't have to get impatient. I can be on this line of behavior. And I think a lot of times what I hear is that people, when they do that, it does translate very easily to their child. Now, their child may not be able to exhibit it at 6 years old, but if they see it when they're 6 years old, then it definitely can improve how they respond when they're 12, 14, 17, 24, on and on.
Because they remember it.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised how well these kids have memories. Like an elephant, they never forget.
Yeah.
And whatever you instill in them at 6, they're still going to hang on to when they go into their teen years. And if in their teen years they can hang on to that line, as Lynette has described, then you're doing each of yourselves a big favor, because you're not screaming and jumping up and down and exhibiting poor behavior, mom, dad.
Yeah. And we're all going to slip. I mean, we always joke with my daughters, they're in their 20s now. And so I started working on this model back when they were young. And so they were kind of my guinea pigs. So we always are kidding about the model and, how they can use it or not use it in their daily lives and all of that. So I think it's something you can take, like any tool, any skill, and pass it on to your kids. So yeah, it's definitely a way to do that. And it's good practice for you, because when you're feeling really frustrated, that's when you usually know that you need to really focus on the model, is if you're feeling like frustrated or upset, because that's a really good time to practice. Okay, I'm really frustrated. I'm going to put away the frustration and I'm going to go with the calm or the friendly or whatever word I've chosen for my personal intentional mission.
And if you need to throw in an every now and then, go and do it.
Yes.
Just the physical thought of will get you. I mean, you have to put your lips around a big round word. So while you're concentrating on that, your temperature will go down a bit.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I had a counselor friend of mine I was talking to about it, and we were joking, because it's like, you can't just say your emotions are going to go away. You have to do something with them. So he said to me, okay, so the next time you feel really, frustrated, or, you just got a lot of emotion there, he said, go get in your car and go where nobody can see you. And just yell and scream and say every horrible thing you want to say. Make sure your phone's turned off, though, so you don't accidentally, call somebody on your phone while you're doing it, and just get rid of all that emotion, and then go back and you can do your model again and practice those words. So
it's difficult, and it's hard to remember, especially when you have reached your frustration level. But it certainly is a lot healthier in terms of health and also mind, because when you get angry or frustrated, you stop thinking clearly. And that's when you really lose the potential to hang on to what should not be said.
Yeah. I think that goes back to the idea of mind, body, spirit, that they all are very interrelated. And so whenever you get upset, it's normally a physiological response you're having to something, and then it causes a physical response, which makes you feel a certain emotion. And so if you're going back and forth with all those emotions and physiological responses, and you're up and down and all over the place, you're putting a strain on your body. And so whenever you take that strain off, it helps to calm your body down, so it's not stressed either. So I think, definitely it does have to do with how you stay overall well. And for an organization, if you think about it, if you've got employees who are well in all of those areas, then they're going to be better employees. They're going to be more engaged. They're going to feel more valued, and all of those things that's that little thing that improves your chances over the company who doesn't do that. You may have everything the same with every other company, but that one little thing may be the thing that pulls you over for customer service and things like that.
So have you decided to encourage organizations to start teaching their employees this is part of their employee manual?
Well, yeah, I think that would be really a valuable tool. And that's what I kind of do already, is I do work with some organizations to help identify what they want their corporate culture to be. And normally the way I would start them off is I would say, okay, first thing you got to do is define the behaviors, because You already know what your business plan is, and you already know what your goals are, and you already know what you need to do as far as the work of the business. But what you may not have in place is the roots of it, which is your foundational stuff, which is the behavior of your employees. So if your personal intentional or your mission for the company behaviorally is to be friendly, then if your employees aren't friendly and they go out and they are exhibit behaviors that aren't friendly to most people, then it breaks trust between the organization and their clients, because they're not being true to what their words are. And so you cause these little micro fractures. And so I would say if you're an organization that is really trying to emphasize that corporate culture, pick some words, friendly, helpful, whatever they are. And then that's your measure for whether or not somebody is truly engaged in the corporate culture, if they're exhibiting those behaviors. And it's great for hiring people too, because one of the questions you can ask is, give me some words to define, who you want to be as a person, and what kind of a company you want to work for. What are those adjectives? And the only one I say you really can't do is they've got to be adjectives that you can actually put into action, like friendly, helpful. It can't be happy, because sometimes you just can't make yourself happy. You can't.
No,
that's not
but you can make yourself content with the status quo enough so you can work with it or through it or around it, so that you're not endangering yourself or anybody else.
Yeah, I think to me, the way I look at it is, if you pick words that you can behaviorally control, friendly, helpful, efficient, those types of words, when you do those, you create that environment of strengthening yourself and the people around you, that energy you were talking about. And when you do that, that's where you get the contentment, because you feel content or fulfilled knowing that you were able to control something in your day and you did it successfully without harming anyone else and keeping everybody together. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. I think you ought to introduce it into the colleges and also into the schools, because certainly the kids and the teachers get into a lot of, I would say, past lively discussions. Some of them the students can get downright nasty because they don't think what they're going to say. They just open their mouth and let the words pour out. And I think if they are taught how to really control themselves by adapting your 3 behavioral methods, and then we can carry it up to the presidents, because I think that if we did this and then do it worldwide, then we can really get some kind of movement going, because I really believe that people just can't keep on misbehaving the way we've been doing it for the last several centuries.
Yeah, we actually I had a discussion with somebody recently, and we were talking specifically about the college level students, is that there appears to be a decline in critical thinking skills, which is how well you're able to look at that broader picture of the world. And so really the model actually addresses that. If you're looking for how do you find critical thinking skills? Well, the broader your view and the more you're able to see other people's perspectives, not judge as good or bad or wrong or right, the third part of that. The more you're going to be able to have some critical thinking skills that'll help you think through and problem solve and see the bigger picture, which makes you a better leader. So I would love to see more classes in this type of thing, and it's coming. You can see already they've already started to put a lot of classes like this into the university level. So I think we're seeing a definite trend towards it, as opposed to when I started 20 years ago with this, when it wasn't as big of a thing. So
I think they've reversed their thinking on a lot of things that originally they threw out. They threw out the humanities a long time ago too, because they didn't think people needed the humanities, and that's what the humanities are all about. Recognizing there's a wider world beyond that, from where you come from, that you have to respect other people and their ideas. You may not have to agree with them, but you have to at least listen to what they have to say, because who knows, they may have something which is a part of what you think. And if you put the two together, you get a whole answer between you.
Right. Yeah. That goes into the other discussion on, I don't know how familiar a lot of people are with the thought of binary thinking, where it's either one way or the other. And if it's not one of those two, it's wrong. So, we forget all that gray area in between. You can be one thought or another thought, or you could be, somewhere there in the middle. And I think sometimes, and that falls in with critical thinking skills too. If you don't have the critical thinking skills, sometimes you do fall more into saying, okay, if it's not this way and I'm right, and therefore if you don't believe me, then you're wrong and I'm right. And that goes back into that whole thing of judging people as good or bad or wrong or right, and that whole thing of value. What are we afraid of? What are our how do we value ourselves as a human being? So they're all, to me, that's all so interrelated into how we see things and how we see the world and interact with it.
And that's what you taught when you first start coming up through the grades. Is what you need to start doing is to teach kids that just because someone doesn't think like you doesn't mean that they don't have the answer, that they may have the answer, and you need to listen to hear what this answer is, and if anything may influence you as to maybe you changing what you have previously thought. Because I know that a lot of kids come into the school and they feel like they're the only ones who know the truth. Well, where do they get that from? They get that from their parents and their grandparents, because it's discussed at the Sunday table, and they pretty much hear that if it's not what they hear from their own parents or grandparents, then it's of no value and should not be considered. Right. If everybody got together in one big room and shared what their parents and grandparents argued about, they would be amazed to find that there would be a lot of similarities, but also there would be some other introductions of other types of thinking that may help them instead of hinder them. The biggest thing is they have to learn how to listen and then decipher what they're hearing.
Yeah, and to me, that always goes back to that whole thing of if you can enter a situation or a discussion with there's no good or bad or wrong or right. We're just all different. And then start from there, then you can have any discussion and it can be incredibly diverse, and you can learn so much about other people and how they think and how they view the world. And it doesn't have to be a right or wrong thing where you fight over it, but where you have a dialogue about it that helps you to expand how you think about it. And it doesn't mean you have to change the way you think about it. It just means that it gives you the opportunity to go into that situation and possibly learn something that's going to change who you are. Especially, we've got the internet now. Kids can get on pretty much and find anything in any country.
It's not doing anybody any favors. So, Lynn, could you please tell everybody where they can find you on the World Wide Web, how they can get in contact with you should they want to, and any other important information?
The best way to get in touch with me is on my website page. It's expectations2, which is the number 2, reality. .com, expectations2reality.com, and they can Google it under Dr. Lynette Reed, and it should pop up with Expectations Reality. And on that page, there's actually a resource center on it, and you can put your email in and it will put you into the resource center. There's a password to get into it, but if you go in there, it actually has the starting point for learning the model. It gives you a worksheet where you can actually sit down and do the personal intentional mission statement. And that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. And then my contact information's on there also.
Terrific. Though I have it scrolling across the page, expectations to reality at iCloud.com is the email that you can reach her at. And you ought to really go over to her website. It's very interesting, a lot of good reading material. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and adults of all ages, before you go away, Dr. Johnson had this to say in The Idler, 1758, scarce anything awakens attention like a tale of cruelty. Thank you all very much for listening. And remember, please keep listening and please stay healthy. Thank you.